Hi everyone, this is Darlin González with BELatina News. Welcome back. Today we are going to be talking with Mónica Ramírez. She is an activist, attorney, co-founder and president at the Latinx House. And I'm very excited to be talking to her because Monica has a long story of promoting women's leadership and power. She has been dedicated to ending gender-based violence on the workplace and achieving gender equity. Also, she has been very engaged in direct service and advocacy for farm workers, women in general, and immigrants. So I'm very excited to be talking to Monica today. Let's wait for her to join our live. And we're going to be talking mainly about her work and how to increase Latinx representation in the media, and how is that very important for the upcoming elections. So let's see, this is the request. Okay, she's joining now. Hi,
Hi,
how are
how are
you?
you?
I'm good. What are you right now?
I'm in Ohio, which is where I live. I'm in a little town called Fremont, which is in the northwest corner of Ohio.
Okay, very nice. How's the weather there?
It's a little gray. It's fall, but that's
Okay,
okay. We have the sunshine in here.
good. That's good. So hi, welcome, Monica. It's a pleasure to be
Thank,
talking to you today. Um,
thank you.
to start this live, I would like for you to introduce yourself. So tell us who you are and what do you do.
Well, I am pleased to be here. Thank you for having me. And my name is Mónica Ramírez. I am the founder of several different initiatives. One of them is called Justice for Migrant Women, which focuses on the rights of migrant women workers, including farm workers.
Hmm.
That's really been sort of my first passion in terms of my work because I come from a farm worker family, which is why I live in Ohio, because this is where my family settled out of the migrant stream. So that's one of my hats, but I'm also the co-founder of the Latinx House and of She Se Puede and several other initiatives. And, really all the work that we've been doing over the years has been about lifting up Latinas, lifting up farm workers and other people in our community that haven't been as visible as they should be.
Of course. So you mentioned several of the things that we are going to talk about today. So to start, can you tell me a little bit about your work in, advocating for farm workers' rights?
Sure. So I think most people don't realize that there are 2 to 3 million farm workers in our country. We don't have a firm statistic because it's difficult for farm workers sometimes to participate in the studies that are done by the federal government for lots of reasons. They're afraid to be part of them and for other reasons. So that the best estimate that we have is 2 to 3 million farm workers. And, farm workers feed us. They pick, pack, and plant the food that we eat. And about 1 million farm workers in our nation are women. And most of my work, over 2 decades, has been focused on the rights of migrant women workers, and primarily fighting against sexual harassment, which is a major problem that farm worker women experience in our country. And aside from that, there are all other forms of gender discrimination too. So tomorrow is Latino Equal Pay Day. Farm worker women experience a wide pay gap. So farm worker women are paid on average about $11,000 a year compared to about $22,000 paid to men. And they also experience pregnancy discrimination, exposure to pesticides, which are really harmful to their physical health and reproductive health, and other dangerous conditions. So we do work on behalf of the farm worker community. And, in the past 8 months have been really focused on the COVID response because the farm worker community has been one of the communities that has been most gravely impacted by the COVID crisis.
Yeah, it's a very sad reality, and I think we need to do some changes in that. So I'm very glad that you are one of the persons that's fighting for them. I think more people needs to like join this movement and try to help a little bit more. Is there any way that we can be a part of this? Like, how can we help?
Well, first of all, we all need to be talking loudly about the many contributions that farm workers are making. There's been this narrative that's emerged because the federal government decided that farm workers were essential. And we know that farm workers have always been
Of
essential,
course.
but the farm worker community has been denied essential rights and benefits. So we need to talk about the important work that farm workers do every day and be thankful. And we also need to push our government, our political representatives, to pass laws that actually protect farm workers, including in some of these COVID relief bills. You know, more than half of farm workers in our country are undocumented, and undocumented immigrants were left out of the COVID relief bills, which is outrageous considering the fact that many frontline workers who went to work every day during this COVID crisis were undocumented individuals and immigrants or people who are from mixed status families. And so we need to change that. And what people who are watching can do is contact your political representatives and tell them that farm workers and all workers deserve essential rights and benefits.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Um, so you mentioned earlier in the conversation about Latina Equal Pay Day. I know that's happening tomorrow. So tell me a little bit about what that is. That's an initiative that you're leading, right?
That's right. So my organization, Justice for Migrant Women, along with the Equal Pay Today Coalition, will be hosting a day of action. We're also co-hosting a Twitter storm with the LACLA, the labor organization for the Latinos in our country. That Twitter storm is happening from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And the reason that we're taking action is because Latinas are paid an average of just 55 cents to the dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. And I know that sounds hard to believe, but it is true. And since 1989, we've only gained 3 cents in terms of closing the pay gap. So what that means for us as Latinas is we will lose more than $1 million over the course of our 40-year career. So groups like Equal Pay Today, LACLA, Justice for Migrant Women, and many others are coming together tomorrow to observe the fact that Latinas are finally catching up to what white men made in just 1 year. For us, it's 22 months that it takes us to make the same amount of money. And so in addition to this Twitter storm, we'll be having a virtual event from 3 to 4:30 Eastern Time that'll have a lot of great information, speakers, music. The cafeteras are joining us and other groups. And then after that, from 4:30 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Twitter, we're joining with She Se Puede and with Suma Wealth to do a Twitter conversation with Latina leaders in business who are going to do some money mentoring. So there are many events happening around the country tomorrow. These are just a few of them that I'm mentioning. People can certainly follow Mujeres Rising, which is Justice for Migrant Women's Instagram handle and Twitter. Or you can follow me, and I'll be posting about it all day today and tomorrow as well. And it's important that folks note that 55 cents on the average is just the average, but the reality is that there are many Latinas who actually make less. So immigrant Latinas in our country earn on average, from what we know, about 37 cents to the dollar. And undocumented women, we don't actually have good statistics to know. And I raise this because people often say, and will say tomorrow, the Latina Equal Pay Day is the last payday of the year. But we have to remember that there are Latina workers and there are other workers who actually won't even catch up in 1 year because they're part-time workers, they're gig workers, because they're undocumented for lots of reasons. And so we all need to come together and speak out about this discrimination that is happening against Latino workers and other workers. It's really important because it affects us today, but it also affects our families and generations to come.
Yeah, and we need to do this not only for us right now, but for our children too, because this is a fight that is going to continue unless somebody speaks up and somebody does something about it. And we are that. We need to start talking. I know you recently published, well, not you, but the New York Times recently published an article. It was an opinion piece that you co-authored called Latinos Can Win the Culture War. This article is about the importance of Latinx representation in the media, but I want you to talk a little bit about that and why is it so important that we are positively represented in our media.
Yeah, so I co-authored that piece with a good friend, a brilliant human. Her name is Elizabeth Mendez Berry,
Mm-hmm.
and the piece talked about a number of things, and that includes the lack of Latinx representation in entertainment, which has been a conversation that has been happening, really loudly for a couple of years. And so we talked about Latinx representation in entertainment, in TV and film, but we also talked about the fact that it isn't just entertainment that is failing to represent us accurately. It's also media organizations. It is also publishing companies that aren't buying books that are written by Latinx communities. It's museums that aren't showing our art. And, and in different ways, the Latinx community has been underrepresented and we would say erased. And it's very dangerous. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, I helped write a letter that some might be familiar with called the Querida Familia letter that was also published in the New York Times. And I wrote that letter alongside Eva Longoria, America Ferrera, Diane Guerrero, and some other Latinas, and it was signed by over 200 Latinx leaders. And the reason we wrote that letter was because it was in the weeks following the El Paso massacre. So what we know is that as our community has been misrepresented, as stereotypes about our community have been, put on TV screens and in movies, and as we've been portrayed as, criminals and in other negative ways, there have been a rise in hate crimes. There has been more violence against our community. That also contributes to discrimination. And when we talk about equal pay and the pay gap, one of the things that's a contributor to the pay gap is bias, right? Implicit bias. And so if we are not portrayed accurately, and if we are not portrayed in all the complexity and beauty that our community represents, then there are real negative consequences for our community. So our op-ed was calling out all of the folks who are responsible for not representing us as we should, and we're calling for change. Because we know that our community, which is 60 million people strong and is rich in culture and diversity, we have a lot to offer, and we are offering a lot to this country, and we need to be represented. And we believe, and I strongly believe, that the representation has to happen by not having other people tell our stories, but by creating space so that we can authentically tell our stories, just like you're doing. We need to be able to shine a light on our community, but from our lens. And so that's what we're calling for. And, the article, the op-ed actually, it got a lot of traction. It ended up running actually in 3 different versions of the New York Times. So it was online, in print, and then it ended up being translated into Spanish. And it was really incredible to see the response. But I think that just speaks to the fact that our community is hungry for content that reflects us.
Yeah, we definitely are. I remember I watch a lot of Netflix, and I never found like a TV show or a movie that would actually represent my community as a Cuban accurately. So I remember when they put One Day at a Time, that
Yes.
I was like so happy about that. I'm like, oh my God, they finally get it. Like they are portraying us as just a regular family, and they are exploring issues and things that matter to us, and things that matter in general during this time. So I was like so happy. And then when they took it off Netflix, I was like so upset about it. And I'm like, no, this cannot happen. It has to stay up, and we need more things like that. And not only for Cubans, but for all of the Latinx community. We need to be rightly represented in the media, because what people know about us is what they see. And
that's right.
Yeah, what they see, it's not accurate at all. And for all of us that have lived throughout like the whole country, whenever we meet someone and we tell them about our background, they have this idea of what we are, what we stand for, that it's so incorrect. And I always find myself like correcting them, like, no, that's not how it is, let me tell you.
Yeah. And I love One Day at a Time. Gloria Calderon Kellett is a genius, and her show is beautiful, and hopefully people are still tuning into it. But I think that, to your point, there are a lot of people, including myself, who really connected with her show. Tanya Saracho's Vida is another show that many of us connected with. And, it just really makes a difference when we can see ourselves. And for folks like Eva Longoria and others, America Ferrera, who are creating content about Latinx community members who have made a huge impact, that's really important too, because that is what our children see. And we want our children to see themselves represented and also know that they can be anything that they want, that we don't have to fit into one box that someone else created for us.
Yeah. How do you think that this lack of representation or like misrepresentation of the Latinx community affects the upcoming election right now?
Well, I think that there are many Latinx organizations like Voto Latino, like Mi Familia Vota, like Poder Latinx. Many Latinx organizations have been working really hard to connect with our community to ensure that we have the facts and the information that we need and that we're represented. And thankfully, many of those folks are also doing media interviews to try to set the record straight about who our community is and what some of our priorities are. When I was talking about how many of us there are in the country, people don't think of the Latinx community as being as diverse as we are. And so they often think that immigration is the only issue that we care about. And the reality is we care about a lot of issues,
Yes, we do.
And so I feel like what it means for the upcoming election is that thanks to the work of many organizations and leaders, people have made the strong case for paying close attention to the Latinx vote. We've seen, I think I read an article over the weekend that said more Latinx voters have voted early in this election than in the past election and in the past presidential election. And that speaks to the fact that we're getting organized and mobilized, but also I think it means that political candidates are paying attention to not just to our issues, but to the fact that we have political power and we're exercising that. So what does it mean for representation in film and TV and in some of these other spaces? I mean, I think that they kind of go hand in hand, right? Culture and policy, culture and politics go hand in hand. And if what we've demonstrated more than ever before is our dedication and power and the fact that we're just going to keep showing up, we're going to keep demanding what we need and we want, and that relates to politics, but that also relates to the kind of content that we expect to see and that we are going to be demanding from the media and from entertainment and from others to provide.
Yeah. It's a way of saying we're here to stay and you need to listen to us.
That's right.
Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time, but is there any other initiative that you're leading or any other campaign that you want to talk about, that you want people to know, that you want people to help you with?
Well, I also just want to give a shout out to my hermanas who co-founded She Se Puede. I'm one of the 10 co-founders of that platform. And for those of you who maybe aren't familiar, She Se Puede is a new lifestyles platform for Latinas by Latinas. And we've been really engaged in civic engagement over the last couple of weeks. But the platform is focused on providing Latinas with information so that we can be inspired, so that we can have information that we need on a whole range of topics like health and finances. And, our intention is to really lift up Latinas and to make sure that people see us with all of our power. And so that entity was co-founded in addition to myself, by America Ferreira, Eva Longoria, Carmen Perez, who many of you probably know from the Women's March, Stephanie Valencia, who has been really leading on some of the data related to Latinx voters, and Jess Morales Roqueta, who's been organizing domestic workers and on behalf of the families who are at the border, the immigrant families that are at the border, as well as within politics. So there's a group of us, all very different and all deeply committed to lifting up our entire community, but also specifically Latinas. So check it out at she_se_puede.
Yes, please do. I already went before our interview, and it's definitely such an inspiring community out there that, and you guys put like a lot of content that we need to know, and it's nowhere else. So I'm very glad that platform exists. It's called She Se Puede, so you can go ahead and follow them on Instagram, go check out their website, and you can do the same with Monica, because Monica is going to be promoting her virtual event tomorrow, so that for all of you that are interested, please follow her, and you can be a part of Equal Pay Day tomorrow, and you can enjoy all of the things that she has prepared. So thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And don't forget, tomorrow, demand more for Latinas.
We will. Have a good day.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.